And welcome back to Two Wheels. So, a couple of big articles, and Marc Marquez, he's stunningly said, after Mugello, after the Italian Grand Prix, I may never be the same again. What exactly did he mean? And also, perhaps maybe opposite to that, the Ducati insiders may have made a surprise prediction that they think Marquez, in spite of all this, could win the Hungarian Grand Prix, and that's just within the next week. So let's get into the story here. This is from Motorcycle Sports, yeah? And they're saying that in a stunning revelation at the Italian Grand Prix held at Mugello, Marc Marquez, as we know, the 9-time world champion, one of the GOATs, laid bare the brutal truth of what was his ongoing battle for survival in this high-octane world of motor racing, they say. So as we know, Marc Marquez, he is 33 years old. And this candid admission, which we spoke, resonates within the whole paddock. He may never regain the physical prowess he once possessed. I think he's pretty much made admissions as much to that. Following a number of grueling surgeries on his shoulder and his foot, his mere presence on the track, let's be fair, no one expected him to come back to Mugello. We helped break the story as well, and it was a massive surprise. But it was a good surprise to the point of that's really good. But is he going to be hurting himself more? Now, throughout the events, Marquez, it says here, seemed to battle not just his competitors, but his own body, grappling what was a demanding and physical strain that MotoGP racing obviously inflicts. But there was a plus, and that plus was with his shoulder. When he finished the practice session, he said, when I used to come back, I was never able to write notes down, for example, about the bike, etc., or any changes he wanted to make because his hand was shaking too much. This didn't happen this time. But after crossing the finish line, Marquez's honesty was both refreshing and alarming. He said, the fractures in my foot are nothing compared to the issues with my shoulder. He said, if it had just been my foot, I'd be racing on Mugello as well, he declared, clearly articulating, big word, the gravity of the challenges. And he went on to say the main goal was to eliminate the numbness. He said, my arm feels different now, and that was the primary objective of the surgery. But then came a line, they said, that encapsulated his reality. He said, my aim is to improve every day and see how far I can go. No one can guarantee if I'll return to my former self, but I will try. And he said, I will refuse to give up without making effort. And that statement reflects, obviously, how he feels. And he knows every time you go under the knife, every time an athlete goes under the knife for any kind of surgery on their body, it may change them forever, and sometimes not for the best. But this statement, it says, reflects an athlete profoundly aware of his limits, imposed both by age and the constant injuries. And this is in stark contrast to what seemingly was a few years ago an invincible Marquez who felt like he could do anything, crash anyhow and still be okay. But what's more shocking is his shifting priorities. He no longer speaks of championships or victories, kind of like, if I'm still here to prolong my career, etc., I want to try, and things like that. And I mean, this article then says, which I think is a bit unfair, gone, zoom it in a bit. They basically said, gone is the Marquez who dominated the track in 2019, replaced by a man now grappling with harsh realities of a sport that demands not just speed, but extraordinary physical resilience. And yeah, he's got a point. I mean, this article does kind of have a point, but let's be fair, he pretty much dominated last year, so I don't really, you got to take that with an absolutely big pinch of salt. And discussions are continuing with Ducati about extending his contract. I mean, I think unless something very much changes, if Marquez wants to do next year, he will do next year. It is up to Marquez. But yeah, I mean, even British rider Neil Hodgson speculated that Marquez may choose to step away if he realises he can no longer compete for wins. I'm not so sure. He was fairly competitive, at least at the beginning, at Mugello. And it said the crossroads is perhaps more daunting than his return post his arm fracture in 2020, where the goal was simply to resume racing. Now, Marquez must reinvent himself within a sport that's seen the rise of younger talents. We've got Bezzecchi and Acosta. Interesting, one of who is going to be his teammate. But there's hope. And this is what I think is interesting. Ducati insiders have made a surprise prediction about Marquez's Hungarian Grand Prix chances. Now, Gavin Emmett has spoken to Ducati team members, and this is, I believe he's one of the journalists on MotoGP News, links in the description, about Marquez's prospects at the coming Hungarian Grand Prix. And he returned from injury at Mugello after missing the end of the Le Mans weekend, and he missed the entire it must have been really hard for him, the entire Spanish Catalonia weekend. It really must have sucked. But the Spaniard was dominant on the sport's first visit to Ballerton Park last year, taking pole position by 0.3 and winning the two races by a combined 6.4 seconds. There's nothing really to sniff at. But as we go down here, Ducati staff, though, do think Marquez can win the Hungarian Grand Prix. Yeah, I said win. He hasn't scored a podium on a Sunday this year, which is, let's be fair, a fairly big exclamation mark, and last stood on the podium last September, a couple of races before he sealed that 2025 world title. And they said the drought is mostly down to injury, but the car park Balaton layout could suit him, especially compared to the fast-flowing and demanding Mugello. And that's what Ducati insiders are optimistic. They say, "We are speaking to people in the paddock. In the Ducati camp, we were told people at Ducati fancy Marc to have a go at Balaton Park." And that's what they've been reporting. That's what TNT reports are also reporting. They're saying it's a completely different circuit to Mugello, to the fast-flowing, open-wide, beautiful scenery. Balaton Park is literally like a car park on the edge of an industrial estate. And Emmett's colleague Neil Hodgson, we've heard from before, would be surprised if Marquez is fit enough for a win already. He said, "You still can't imagine Marc being fit enough by next week. 7 days from now in the race, it's going to take him a week to recover from this." But as he revealed after Sunday's race, Marquez considered waiting until Hungary to make his comeback, but characteristically rushed back in Italy and bagged, let's be fair, a solid bunch of points. So yeah, can he win? He's Marc Marquez. Absolutely. He has a chance. Is it going to be an uphill struggle? Absolutely. Will Marc Marquez give up? Absolutely not. What do you think? Comment below and let me know. Maybe if I can even have some kind of poll. But if you enjoy this, please give us a subscribe. We are a new channel who talk about MotoGP called Two Wheels. But until then, I'll speak to you soon. Thank you very much. Stay safe.